Well, good morning. Today we are talking about China, its culture, its taxonomies, their values, and also their non-verbal communication.
Etiquette.
This information would be useful for anyone researching about Chinese culture, and something that you have to take in mind is that this is not meant to stereotype all Chinese people. So
It not applies to everyone that you know that come from China or got from China.
we'll talk first about how taxonomies are applied to Chinese culture, afterwards about communication problems that might occur between Chinese and other cultures, and at the end we'll talk about the non-verbal communication.
According to Upset Center, the center who made this comparison, so the taxonomies that we are using, this is uncertainty avoidance, and then we'll speak a little bit more further of this.
In this chart we can see a comparison between China and the United States that are like the most opposite cultures. The
United States.
purple one or the darker one it's China, and the light one is United States. So we can see that, for example, in individualism and collectivism, that are these ones, are the most like different taxonomies they have, or well, in an opposite way. China has as we have mentioned, a collective culture, and this has like, with the pass of the years, it has been decreasing within the younger generations, and individualism was seen as a sign of rebellion because of the war and the history they have.
Communism history that has gone through Chinese and cultural revolutions.
And then another example is applied to uncertainty avoidance, and is reflected on the importance of the face. We have talked about saving face in class, and this interprets like Chinese dignity, and also that they believe that they can explain why Chinese people avoid direct answers all the time, and you need to keep always your face and face of the others. So you are not going to expose yourself into situations that you don't have like a decision made, and this is why we
Individual identity is wholly for this interpretation, so you can understand more when people protect their honor or they want to have a family and they have respect values for every one of those.
also another value that it's a power distance reflected. We reflected on the Confucianism because it reflects values of harmony, hierarchy, benevolence, and morals. And we have seen that Chinese people have a very marked way to respect seniority and to respect hierarchy. They cannot break this line between them. This is applied into families and also into the business.
One she is
environment.
called in Chinese. There's an Asian belief about good and evil that we can understand by looking at yin and yang. Perhaps more of the sense of view of innate goodness of human nature, and philosophy who describes the way of Chinese philosophers like Lu Wan. Human nature is originally good, so human beings are meant to act in a positive ways, usually because they understand their feelings, and that's the comparison between the yin and yang. In Asian culture says this duality exists, this duality also coexists.
Well, in other taxonomies, we took the Edward Hall's taxonomies, and China it's considered one of the most high context cultures. So, like the basic question we have to make in this sense is how it was said, because as we know, the high context cultures have a very implicit conversation. So we put here like two examples, like for example in work they discuss everything in advance and consider meeting an official ceremony where the already commonly agreed decision will be announced. This is important in the way of giving and keeping face, as we have mentioned in the other taxonomies, and this is how they are also related.
Here we can see a chart. Germans, low context, Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Asian cultures being in a high context society.
A high context person needs to be more explicit about the process and the conclusions and the results.
Needs a background.
So in business sometimes this is a little bit kind of a problem, because Americans, for example, are used to have all detailed and they ask a lot of questions, and Chinese people are not used to that.
Communication problems. You should avoid negative applies to the people. So if you want to say no, try to do it in a more discourse form. Try to avoid being unapologized to the people.
Another thing is that Chinese people don't make emphasis on their emotions when they are talking, so you have to be careful on how you use them between the conversations. They are also not used to move the hands while talking, and they sometimes get a little bit stressed and angry if you make a lot of movements.
Should stay serious on business, and seniority you must respect it.
Another thing is that you have to be prepared to have a lot of personal questions sometimes, because they relate a lot work and family.
Oh, this is nonverbal communication. This is perhaps to introduce some basics. They count numbers until 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, how it's shown in the chart. So it's important, perhaps as here on the left row, where it's a woman moving the hands. This communication from history that has come through dances to express welcoming to new hostess, people who come to your house, or here is a dance also with umbrellas. So this tradition that goes with dances is really important as a non-verbal communication to understand Chinese culture. This is a Hong Kong movement. It's just now being globalized, this information about crossing their arms. There are different signs to understand, like for example, it just happened from Paris, trying to make a sign of rebellion and protest. And it's important to don't have a direct eye contact with people, such as winking and whistling, and try to respect. It's again this form of understanding personal spaces and have a respectful behavior.
Another thing that we have to mention in these characteristics of nonverbal communication is that Chinese people it's all related in a high context culture, because as they make like very personal relations with people, they are all their communication. It's also with silent moments or with a little eye contact, so they know what you are meaning or what you are intending to say. Here we mention some of the characteristics that are accepted in both Chinese and United States that seem to be very different, but they have also some characteristics in common. For example, smile and handshake, it's for saying welcome. Can you tell us another one?
Kissing. They don't kiss each other as perhaps European and American cultures. Personal space is really important, so respect it and be respectful with that. As a formal conclusion, it's important to respect others where you go in your land, in your country, in another country, foreign countries, on a board, doing business, knowing new people. It's important perhaps to know their background, then understand their cultures, their matters, and adapt to their behavior so you can have a more peaceful ways of communication with other people.
Many of the problems in business, in family, and or in different situations, it's because of this bad use of the communication skills, and because we don't know how others react and how others live their lives. So if you are planning to be in intercultural situations, it would be very good that you investigate first about them, so you can feel comfortable with them and they can feel comfortable with you. For example, Chinese people appreciate a lot that even though you don't know Chinese, that you learn some words and that you try to use them.
Intercultural communication for a better world.
Thank you very much.